There's a stranger I met in Spain. He bought me a drink and we had a good time chatting until I had to go back home in England. A year later, I went to Australia for a week and met the same stranger, and I bought him a drink and he had to go after a couple hours talking and drinking. And the final time I met him 4 years later in England, where he said he was on a business trip. I actually got his number now, so not exactly a stranger, but it's a huge coincidence that I met a same random person in 3 different countries, years apart 3 times. Strange. When my dad was a kid, he had a best friend after high school. They lost contact with each other. 5 years ago, I got a best friend too. Turns out he was my dad's best friend's son. We were in Paris this one time at Disney World, and a girl called Sam was accidentally in the background admiring something past the camera. So of course she was in the photo. My brother and Sam have been going out for 8 years now, and we just recently seen the picture where Sam is with my brother without knowing the whole time. Wanna hear a story that happened to me? Well, it was one time that my mom took a picture of me in the Swedish airport, and there was this little girl that accidentally came in to the picture. 8 years later, I showed this picture to my best friends and she screamed, "OMG, that's me on the picture." And I was so happy that I almost cried. Last school year, I had to do a school project with a boy I hated. We went to the library and started actually getting along. As I was leaving, he came outside because I had forgotten my phone. At that moment, he noticed a toy locket I keep around my neck. Thinking it was silly, he laughed at me, asking why would a teen have such a childish toy. Mad and not answering him, I walked towards my house just across the street. Following me, he said, "Hey, I didn't mean it, look," he said, pulling out a charm bracelet that was for a little girl. He said he's had it since he was 3 and doesn't know where he got it. As I looked at it, I saw something written in it. It said, "You, me, together we will be." As I was in my driveway, my mom came and saw him. She looked at us and started laughing. Both lost, we asked her, "What?" And she said, "Don't you recognize him?" I shook my head and she just pointed at my locket. "He gave you that." I was shocked, but when she pointed at the charm bracelet in his hand and said, "And that used to be yours," I was just lost. A friend of mine got cancer 2 years ago and they gave him 8 months to live. He looked like death for a while, but suddenly started to recover and his cancer all but vanished. Shortly after, he noticed his dog was sick, and after about a month, she was dead of cancer. Since then, I have heard of a few similar cases. When my grandmother was younger, she accidentally backed into this guy with her car. Not badly, but she tried to bring him to the hospital and he refused. He even refused her insurance and whatnot. Maybe 10 years ago, my grandma was telling the story and my grandfather said he was hit by a car on that street and they figured out she had hit him. It was so funny because this was years before they knew each other and didn't even realize for decades after that married. So I remember this one time, I was at the corner shop and some guy who came out of a white van just cut in front of me. I thought he was totally mean, but I said nothing because I was pretty small in comparison, being a female of 5'2" and all. Anyway, he bought a cigarette or whatever and asked directions to the street. Coincidentally enough, that street was the only one I knew because we recently moved there. The guy says thank you and drives away with his friend shortly after. I had this weird feeling in my gut. I said, it'll be super funny if I just led that suspicious guy to my house. I took another route home for no particular reason, but as I approached my street, I found that same van parked right in front of my house. They were burglars. Back in 2002, I worked at a grocery store. There was an elderly woman who only grocery shopped once a month, and she always came through my line. She said I was the only one that was nice to her. She would tell me about her kids, grandkids living in Chicago and moving back to Kentucky to her and her husband's hometown. The last time I remember seeing her, she told me, "I wish you could have met my son before he got with the one he's with now." In 2007, I met this guy at my job. One day I went to his dad's house with him. His dad was living alone because his mom passed away a few months prior. I seen a picture of her. I said, "Oh my God, I know her." This guy asked me how, and I told him about her talking to me. Turns out he is the guy this woman wanted me to meet, and she told him about me. We have been together 11 years next month and married 5 years. I seriously think his mom brought us together after her passing.